Today, we are talking about good friction versus bad friction in marketing and why friction isn't always a bad thing. Welcome to the B2B Playbook. We built this channel for small B2B marketing teams who want to drive more revenue for their business. Every week, we're showing you how to create more demand for your brand step by step using our 5Bs framework. So if you're time poor, resource strapped, but you still want to make a big impact on your business, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button down below so you don't miss an episode. Welcome back to the B2B Playbook. Today we are talking about good friction versus bad friction in marketing and why friction isn't always a bad thing. We are into season 7 of the show. We spent seasons 1 to 5 giving away our 5Bs framework for demand generation, showing you how to implement it step by step. In season 6, we answered a lot of FAQs on building and implementing demand generation engines. And now we're going to build on that by continuing to look at demand generation, but also at how it fits into your wider go-to-market strategy. I've got Kevin here, my co-host, of course, as always with us. Kevin, great to see you. For those who haven't caught up on the 5Bs framework and what it's all about, could you please let them know what it is?
Yeah, of course. So the 5Bs framework, as George said, is really our framework for demand generation and building B2B marketing from the ground up. The first stage is Be Ready, where we look at how to deeply understand your dream customers. And then in Be Helpful, we talk about how to develop relationships of trust with them, particularly online and particularly with helpful content. In Be Seen, we talk about how to amplify that content and how to bring focus to your efforts. In the fourth B, Be Better, we talk about how to optimize that B2B marketing process that you've built up until then. And finally, in Be the Best, we talk about some of the advanced strategies and tactics that the guys at the big end of town use that you can employ in your own activity, and also how to make this framework work as a flywheel to continue to deliver value for you over time.
And if you're wondering where to start, of course, go back to our earlier episodes or check out the b2bplaybook.com, where we have a lot more information on our 5Bs framework and how you can use it no matter what stage of business you are currently in. Again, today we are talking about good friction versus bad friction, Kevin, in marketing, and why friction isn't always a bad thing. And Kevin, I think marketers had this big reaction from the lead generation days, moving towards that demand generation movement where we said, let's ungate everything. Let's remove every point of friction for the buyer journey. But in doing so, maybe we've stripped away a few things that we might want to help us become a better go-to-market team. And sometimes, as we said, like having friction isn't always the worst thing. So we're going to look into how do you know which friction to keep and what to kill? We're going to look into what's good, what's bad, and that's what we're going to unpack. So maybe we'll go back into, Kevin, really what friction marketing is all about. So friction is the effort that a buyer really has to expend to take their next step with you. Again, it's not inherently good. It's not inherently bad. It's just how and why you use it that really matters. And good friction, I think, helps the buyer makes a better decision and strengthens your relationship with them. And bad friction, Kev, really slows them down for no reason or only serves your internal metrics. So Kev, classic serving your internal metrics, especially if you're geared towards MQLs, that incentivizes marketers to just gate everything. Isn't that right?
Yeah, 100%. And, we've talked that to death on a few episodes. And I think it's a common pain point that we all feel as marketers, and probably also as sales, those amongst our leaders who are in the sales space have felt as well, because that means that the leads, the MQLs that come to them that are then worked on over by the sales team are just not that useful. So that definition, that particular internal metric really does slow things down overall. I think another way to sort of illustrate this concept of good versus bad friction is to run through a couple of examples. One, a good example of good friction is a short quiz on your website that personalizes your content so that someone going through the content immediately finds what they're looking for based on, the short quiz that they do right at the beginning of entering your website. And potentially that gives you an idea of what content to serve to them in their hunt for information. Now, on the flip side, what that might look like in terms of bad friction would be if it was actually a really long lead form asking them from everything from, the dog's name to their phone number before sharing a simple one pager of generic information that everyone gets. Obviously, to the user, to that audience member going through that process, going through that long lead form, that would feel like really bad friction. It wastes their time. It doesn't really add any value to them as a buyer, and really doesn't add any value to your own business as well, just because you're not actually seeing good intent come through. You're just building some bad reputation out there from people who interact with your brand. Some other examples of bad friction include overly gating content. So this is from a little while back when people would do this on everything, is to force people to give up their phone number, budget, company details, and every detail about their personal lives to get a simple PDF of some market research or generic information that really should be shared across the board. You can imagine how that could be bad friction. There could also be parts of that external facing process on your websites that's really about your internal only workflows. For example, there's potentially forms or flows designed for your own CRM to meet certain field requirements and not to serve your customer. I think a classic example here is if you're going through an insurance form. If you're filling out a form of some sort to get a piece of insurance, there's a million questions, obviously all relevant to the particular insurance that you cover that you want to get. But some of those questions make you wonder, what am I giving up here? How is that relevant to the cover I get? So when a lot of these forms and flows on your website, on your interactions with your customers is really about ticking a box within your CRM, within your back end internal only workflows, perhaps it's better to leave those out of the initial customer interaction or find a more appropriate place to have that interaction to collect some of that information if you in fact need it. And finally, doing some vanity lead gen is also bad friction. So that's like collecting contacts just so you can hit that MQL target, and not because it actually improves the buying journey or actually gets good quality leads to your sales team. Again, that comes back to the point that George was making earlier. If you focus heavily on internal metrics like MQL targets, that will really guide your work in the marketing team in the wrong direction. So in summary, good friction helps both sides, both the buyer and your business. And bad friction really only helps the business, if at all.
If I think some that are on my bad list that I come across, or one that I hate, is gating case studies as well. Especially if your competitors have their case studies readily available on their website. Why are you making people take that extra step? Because a case study is, yes, it's a signal someone wants to go deeper and understand, can I trust you? Have you done this for other businesses like mine in the past? Gating that could be a barrier to taking things any further with you, because guess what? Your competitors ungated it and they met their requirements. They've worked with similar companies, but they were too afraid to fill out your form because they didn't want to be hounded by your BDMs yet because they're just in research phase. So that is one that I really, really don't like, Kevin. I think some of the really good ones when it comes to good friction is if you really need it and there's so much value on the other side. So for example, if your organization has a community that your ICP can have access to and you run a community, or even a community event, a real event, like getting people's information for that is fine. And it is acceptable to do that because you need it just to orchestrate the actual event to allow them in the community. That's fine. That makes sense. Newsletters as well. I mean, that is fair enough to gate. You need that person's email. Otherwise, they can't subscribe to your newsletter. So I think they're good points of friction. And then, Kevin, probably something we've both been learning from working more closely with sales, in particular with Adam Mandarovich, is looking for those opportunities to create friction around cataloging. Now, I don't think this is something that marketing should go and do all on its own. I think it requires a lot of tight alignment with sales. And cataloging, for those that haven't been following our conversations with Adam, is really a skill that BDMs used to do and used to be something that was part of their responsibility, and it helped them generate a map of the market because they would basically contact each account in your ICP and find out, hey, what current vendor do you use right now? What do you like about them? What don't you like? When is your contract up? Is there anything that we could put on the table in advance of that contract to see if you change your mind? And that is really good commercial information for the sales team because it gives them relevant information. It gives them the timing when the buyer has told them when they want them to follow up again because they've told them based on their contract date, and they've given you permission to follow up again. So they are three really, really key important things. And Kev, that is very, very different to passing on the contact details of someone who has downloaded an ebook from some top of funnel piece of content you've put together, right? Like that's very, very different.
Yeah, and it's a very different experience for everyone involved. In particular, for your own business, the quality of data that you get through, are people just racing through a form just to get through it, or are they actually being thoughtful, giving you responses and data points that you're actually going to be able to utilize? For most B2B marketers, we're already pretty thinly stretched as it is. We already have a million things to do that are actually important and going to move the needle. You can't really afford to create barriers and waste more time on things that don't really deliver value. Your buyers don't fear effort as well. They don't fear effort. They actually fear wasting effort. So that means you really need to design those friction points carefully. Those friction points can earn their trust rather than test their patience. And that's really the important thing to take away here is how do you use friction for good rather than for bad? And when you get this right, your data quality is going to improve because buyers are then sharing it willingly and they're giving you better quality data. And your nurture and outbound touch points become smarter. And all your marketing efforts and sales efforts after that is going to be a lot easier because you're truly positioning your brand as a credible expert, as someone who's trusted in this space and not just desperate for that MQL.
One example, Kev, of when we've used it recently and is we really coordinated with Adam to drive more interest in our CRO school, more awareness. We started doing a workshop called The Circuit. It's kind of a webinar, kind of a workshop where we go much deeper into our framework. And as part of the registration form, we actually did progressive profiling where you could just put in the most basic of details. But then once you completed those, it took you to another form where we started to effectively catalog people. Now, CRO School is all about achieving sales, marketing, customer success alignment, about really building a strong outbound system that works with your marketing team as well. So we were cataloging really important information around what your team structure is like. What do you like about it currently? What sort of sales methodology do you use? Are your teams isolated or not? And we framed it all in a way that it would be helpful for us to have that information to make the webinar and workshop more relevant, which absolutely we used it to do that. But then now we have in our database all that information from the people who have attended that's like quite commercial and very relevant for us for when we want to go and reach back out to them at the right time with the right information, hitting on their pains that they've already shared with us, and permission to circle back to do that as well. So coordinate with your salespeople, sit down with them and find out like what commercial information is actually really important for you, because it's not just a name, an email address, and a phone number. What really, really helps you figure out what that is and then look at, well, what activities do we normally do between sales and marketing where we can coordinate, where marketing can just enable sales to capture a bit more of this information. And it doesn't have to be this huge, enormous shift in the way that you're doing things. It could just, again, be doing some progressive profiling when people are filling out forms to capture that information. It could be when you're running a roundtable to make sure you're recording it and you structure some of your conversations so people talk about, well, these are the issues we're having in our current go-to-market. These are the sales methodologies we're using. This is the training that we're having. These examples are quite specific, Kevin, because this is exactly what we're doing for CRO School. But I feel like if we didn't have that tight feedback loop with sales as marketers, we would have just been so focused on the promotion of the event and making it all look great, but we're not thinking about how do we help turn this into a commercial success. Not meaning you have to generate revenue from it now, but you're getting good, actionable information that is useful for both sales and the prospect.
I think an example project to sort of launch a lot of these efforts is to simply look at your FAQs and try and revamp them in light of the information that you can get from sales. It's easy to approach someone within the sales team to say, hey, I know you guys are getting a lot of questions from the potential customers and from existing customers in your day-to-day conversations with them. I'd love to sit down and go through some of the top ones that keep coming up and to formulate some answers that make sense across the whole business, sales and marketing and customer success. And then we can update that information on our marketing pack, on our business pack, on our information on our website, essentially as masked as a task to revamp your FAQs, but now you're learning all this information about your buyers, about your potential customers, and about the friction points that you have. And that gives you an idea of where to look first to audit that process of improving those friction points from bad to good. Because again, it's specific because it's something that I've personally done in my day-to-day work and quite recently as well. And we found a lot of issues that our customers are having as part of that process of finding out what those frequently asked questions are. Of course, we revamped the FAQs, but it actually then gave us ideas about things to prioritize in the pipeline, and we were able to pass those insights back to the product team so they could build it into the product itself. So it all really fits together, and simply you can start that with an FAQs revamp project. And then you can take those insights of where those friction points are and critically look at, well, how do they fit in with your user journey? And this doesn't have to be a big framework you have to stick to, but just a simple series of questions that you can ask when you go through that process in looking at your own user journey through your website and whatever that might be. Map those interactions. Where do people click? Where do people need to fill forms? And also look at your analytics and see where people drop off and stop engaging. And ask, what's the value of each of those interaction points? Where's the value exchange? What's in it for them as well as for you as a business? And make sure that it's actually a point that needs to be there, first off. And second, if it does need to be there, where is it in the right place and is it in the right form? So perhaps it's a conversation that needs to be moved later in the piece where they have a bit more trust in your brand, or maybe it needs to happen earlier because you need that information and it's more crucial based on what your sales team has told you. And maybe you need to change what that value proposition looks like at that particular interaction. You can give it a simple scoring system to give it some prioritization. So is it a good one that builds trust and adds context? So you could probably leave that sort of interaction point. Is it maybe something that's a bit neutral, maybe a little unnecessary, or maybe could be done better? So less of a priority, but something to come back and look at. Or is it something that's really harmful where you're seeing a lot of progress drop off, where you're seeing a lot of users stop engaging with your brand? That's probably where you should prioritize your efforts to improve that value proposition at that particular interaction. And then it's just a simple process of simplifying and redesigning, reworking those interactions with the most priority against them to make sure that it's clearly helping both sides, both your business and importantly, your buyers.
The nice little 4-step process you got there, Kevin. I think that's really helpful. Again, mapping the interactions, looking at what the value exchange is, scoring it, green, yellow, or red. Green is great, yellow, neutral, red. It's quite harmful to both the user and your brand experience. And then finally, simplify or redesign that process based on what you deemed it in the previous step. Great exercise to go through. We don't want to, add to your very busy to-do list, but maybe throw it on end of year, I think, Kevin, when people get a little bit of breathing room. And as you're starting to probably review sort of metrics and targets, it's a really good opportunity, I think, to work in this exercise, Kev.
Yeah, great springboard into the new year as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, key takeaways, Kev, do you want to run through those for today?
Yeah, of course, George. The first one is that friction isn't the enemy, wasted effort is, and make sure you have that good friction that helps the buyer and the business. Remember that bad friction just feeds vanity metrics or internal metrics that really don't move the bottom line. So it's okay to do away with that type of friction. And finally, design your funnel so that every bit of effort from your buyers earns trust and context for your business.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, well, listeners and viewers, as always, you can find links to everything we discussed in the show notes. And we're so grateful that every week more and more marketers tune in every Monday. And if we could ask one thing, it would be to please pass the show on to someone who you think would benefit from it. It would be a huge, huge help to us. Again, check us out on YouTube, like, subscribe, all those beautiful things. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you, listeners and viewers. Take care and catch you next week.
Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone. Take care and catch you all next week.